wanted to comment one quick thing on Congressman and the personal hope that he has given me. You were featured in an article in the Washington Post last year, and in that article...
You said that article, not.
So I went for a drive. So the article in which you were featured, you said that because of your struggles, you had always felt less than. That you came from a family who was strong advocates for the civil rights movement, and you came from this great family. Because of your disease, you always felt less than. And when mental health parity became something for you to work on, you started to realize that you didn't need to feel less than. And that was the first time that I didn't feel less than in my family, and I passed that on to so many people who I work with, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thanks, Kathleen, for leadership on this issue, and your heartfelt commitment, and the fact that you have been prepared from the very beginning to tell your own story and be an example to others of breaking the stigma, which is the biggest battle we all have to face. You know, we all kind of tittered when we talked about an article, because there's an article today, roll call, about I at an event a week ago where people talked about me drinking. And of course I got lots of people advising me today as to how to respond to it, and also chastising me and saying how this was going to really put a sour note on my political career, because I was going to go out, you know, with this shame, this cloud of shame over my head, and they'd say, oh, poor Patrick, you know, we hope he tackles his demons, you know, it's a good thing he's leaving Congress. And it was interesting because I was walking back from the floor after having been handed, you know, about 4 dozen cards from the press gallery wanting to talk to me. And you'd think there's nothing else that's going on in the world besides my personal whereabouts after 11:30 at night. But in any event, he said to me, because he and I share the common disease, and he said to me, you know, when you think about how long we've both been at this, we've been in recovery a lot, you know, shorter time than we've been out there doing our thing. And you know what? It's more abnormal that we're sober than it is, you know. And he says, you know what? You know, what do monkeys do but eat bananas? And I said, what the hell is that got to do with anything? But he said, well, you know, it's, right now it's our nature until we change it. We work every day, one day at a time, to try to change our nature. But and that's work, especially if you've conditioned yourself over the course of a lifetime to turn to a certain escape to help address your feelings. Because when times get tough, your natural inclination is to go there. And the fact of the matter is, the stigma is there, because why else? If I had had an issue with my sugar, if as a diabetic, they would not be passing cards, as many of them, into that floor in the house, wondering, did I eat chocolate cake for dessert instead of have, you know, however many shots of vodka. So the stigma is alive and well. And the fact of the matter is, I have been so proud to be part of the movement to try to erase stigma, but I'm certainly very cognizant of the fact that there is almost a bigger responsibility on me to try to practice what I preach in terms of being, you know, the picture of sobriety. And one of the biggest challenges, and one of the reasons why they say for those who are in sobriety to remain anonymous, is because we're all individuals with our challenges, and we can't be some example to others in a public way of sobriety, because all of us have failings. And if we're the one that someone looks to as the model, and we're public and we fail, then oh my God, you know, we set a bad example. So that's the reason why anonymity is so important. On the other hand, I've heard too many people say, because of the 11th tradition, well, I can't get involved with those politicians or step forward and announce myself as in recovery, because if I do that, I'm violating the 11th tradition. Well, come Cancer Day, I look down the hall and I see loads of people. Come Diabetes Day, I see loads of people, but come Mental Health Day, I look down the hall, and I can hear the echo of my voice. The silence is deafening. Because, in a sense, we're our own worst enemies. Those of us who are in self-help groups who subscribe to that 11th tradition and misinterpret it as meaning that we're supposed to be anonymous in our civic duties. Now, you all are understanding that you have a civic responsibility to stand up and be counted, because you are doing it not just for yourselves, but most importantly, for others that are facing the disease that you faced. And if you don't stand up and petition your government to respond, you know what? This government doesn't just do things because it wants to and thinks, oh, well, what a good idea that is. Oh, well, that's the smart thing to do, and, science tells us that's a disease. So I think that's something that we should cover. If that were the case, civil rights would have passed a lot longer before it ultimately did. If that were the case, a lot of things would have happened well before their time. But they didn't. Why? Because the public pressure hadn't come to bear yet. So it's not about what we know to be true, it's what we can demonstrate through political action to be true by virtue of us showing up in members' offices, making the phone calls, during campaigns, being willing to say to the candidate, how do you stand on the Freed Act? If you don't know what it is, let me explain it to you at a town hall meeting. And now we've got the same bill in both chambers, thanks to Senator Harkin. Build coalitions with other people in the community of fighting for parity and fighting for equal rights. Because frankly, we're all together in a bigger fight against those who would deny people their human dignity simply based upon a pre-existing condition that they have, a disease that's well recognized, and frankly, in doing so, also denying an epidemic in this country in behavioral health that we just have totally neglected in terms of the approach to healthcare as a whole. We don't train our medical professionals whatsoever. There's no requirement in medical school. No state boards testing physicians, nurses, and the like test on whether you have any ability to really identify depression, whether you can ask proper questions to determine whether someone's suicidal, whether you can identify or know how to treat someone with an addiction, whether you can do that brief screening and intervention, whether you can identify people who are suffering from things like eating disorders, whether you can measure these things and how they interrelate, and how crucial someone's emotional health, spiritual health is to their physical health. Because we spend so much of our money in this country at emergency rooms, picking up the pieces of people who've been broken inside and manifest that brokenness through high-risk behavior and self-destructive behavior.